Hello, students. Michael Sanchez, violin teacher here. Hope you guys are having a good day or evening. This evening we're going to be discussing 5 different tips. They're going to hopefully help you guys out to learn the violin better. So I have a few lined up and excited to talk to you guys about it. So I'm the owner of violintutorpro.com. It's a site that we have put together for you guys to help you learn the violin. We have a ton of lessons, a ton of content available, so highly encourage you guys to check that out. Awesome. All right, Troy, if you're there, I see that you're in the lower half here. Would you mind letting us know where you're from and how long you've been playing for? Unmute you here. So we have Jules as well here. Thanks for joining us.
Can you hear me?
I sure can. How you doing, Troy?
Good. My name is Troy. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I've been playing since November of last year. I'm renting a violin from a local store here, and I don't know. I'm progressing. I don't have a tutor right now, but I'm progressing okay, I suppose.
Sure. You've been following my lessons for a while now?
Say again?
You've been following my lessons for a while now?
Absolutely. Over and over again, because and I've gotten better. It's just now that I'm becoming more aware of technique, and so it's important for me to not rush through the lessons, so to speak, and take it slowly because, like you say, because it will get difficult as I go along. So I'm trying to be more aware of that, and so I keep going back through the lessons, and I find myself getting a lot better by going back through it. And I play scales every day as well.
Excellent.
Arpeggios are okay, but they're a little bit more difficult, the arpeggios.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, scales and arpeggios are always going to help, so that's great. Well, I appreciate you joining us. I'm going to get started with the tips, so hopefully these will help you out.
All right, great.
Cool. I do have right now going, guys. I see we have about 18 viewers. You guys can actually ask questions through the events page. Many of you guys have watched before have asked questions right through there, and you can access that right through the website. I also have a plugin installed. We'll see if it works, where I can also see your questions coming in. So would love to help you guys out and give you guys any advice that I can help you out with. All right, so let's start with the first tip. So I want to basically just talk about the first thing, which is how we position our wrist when it comes to playing the violin. So I find quite often that students, when they play, they tend to move too much of their wrist in and out. Potentially, the wrist is even like this when they're holding the violin. So this is basically caused because you guys are probably relying too much on the left hand to hold the violin. So we definitely want to make sure that we're holding it with the chin and the shoulder. So you guys can actually walk around with your violin like this to see if you can really rely on your chin and shoulder. So I have a shoulder rest. Most of you guys hopefully have a shoulder rest out there, so that helps you hold the instrument. So make sure that you get in the habit of holding it properly, and then it's going to be easier for you to probably have your wrist more flexible and not be like this. Basically, if our wrist is like this, it's going to be really challenging to be able to shift later, move our hand up the instrument to be able to play notes up here. So it's important to have the wrist straight. Also, if your wrist is like this, you're going to have trouble doing vibrato because you're relying on the left hand. You definitely want your hand to be free when you're doing the vibrato technique, which sounds like this. Okay. So the first tip is making sure that your wrist is straight and not bent in. The next tip I want to give you guys is making sure that we have proper hand position in the left hand. So I always tell my students, thumb position should be here, hand should be back, hand should be high when we play, and then turn, and just let your fingers fall down. If you do that properly, your fingers are going to be on this angle, which allows you to play every single note. It allows you to find the first finger on every string, as well as eventually your fourth finger. Now, if your hand was more here, it would be more challenging to hit that 4 and hit that 1. Your hand would have to come in and out, which is going to cause problems with you being able to play fast and efficient, as well as doing vibrato, shifting, all the different techniques. So it's really important that the hand is here instead of being here. Really bad habit, I see that all the time. So just if I bring it up close, notice it's right by the nut, and the thumb is above the nut, about an inch away from the nut. So that's perfect hand position. And just as important, we want to make sure that our hand is high when we're playing the violin. So we want the fingerboard to touch about right here. I see students all the time, they have their fingers touching the fingerboard about here. I'll show you what it looks like on the instrument. So we don't want the hand to be here, we want it to be here. Okay? This is going to allow us to be able to reach every single note on the G string, on the E string with just your fingers. If you're doing that properly, you're going to have a lot easier time playing fast and just not relying on the hand to find the notes, which causes a lot of problems. So number 2 tip is making sure that your left hand is relaxed and in the right spot. All right, number 3, let's go to the bow hand. We want to make sure is that our fingers are always curved when we're playing the violin. So make sure the thumb is curved. That's one of the worst habits I see all the time. So make sure your thumb isn't stiff like this. That's going to jab up against the bow. It's going to cause it to be harder to get a good sound. If your thumb is stiff, you're going to get more of this sound. That, by your thumb being stiff. Now if we relax the thumb, okay. Now you might actually start off with your thumb relaxed or curved, but as you start to progress towards the tip of the bow, you might notice that your thumb stiffens out, because as you're going down towards the tip, it's kind of easy for fingers to straighten out. So one tip that you guys should do is make sure that your instrument's more at this angle instead of at this angle, because when your violin is way off to the side like this, it's pointing in left field, then your arm is going to have to be really stiff at the tip, really straight, and that actually can cause your fingers to straighten out, which causes it to be easier to get bad sounds. So if you just make this adjustment from having the violin here to here, now our arm is more relaxed when it's at the tip. See how it's not straight, it's actually more curved and relaxed. So now I can actually keep my fingers curved when I'm at the tip. So that's something that really helps. So just make sure that if you're facing a music stand, try to point the scroll of the violin at the left side of the music stand. Okay, so don't point it way to the left of the music stand. Point it right in front. Now what you don't want to do is you don't want to move your whole body to adjust for that change. So I'll show you what I mean. So like, let's say I want you to get more to point the scroll at the left side of the stand. Don't move your shoulders. Don't do that. Just move the instrument. Okay? Keep your shoulders square to the stand. So the adjustment we're trying to make is get the violin to be more here so that it's easier for us at the tip. Probably one of the worst habits I see from students is bad habits playing at the tip. But that's one of the most important places to be relaxed. So what I want you guys to do right now is grab your instruments, and I want you to go ahead and put your bow at the tip, and I want you to do what I call the rocking bow drill. This is where we're trying to get our arm to go all the way above the instrument, all the way down to our side, and we're trying not to make a sound. If you can do that without making this sound, then you're probably holding the bow properly, and you're applying proper muscles with the index as far as getting the bow up and down. A lot of students have their fingers stiff, and then they're not playing very well at the tip. So that's kind of a way to expose that and also practice that. I'm curious, Troy, how's it going with that drill? I see that you're working on it. Does it sound, are you getting some crunchy noises? Are you getting a clean sound? Tell me about it. I might have to unmute you here. So how's it going?
Okay, I get more of a screechy sound at the tip of the bow versus at the one closest to the frog. I don't have any sound here. It's only when I get to the tip where I start making a sound at the tip.
Yes, that's very common. So basically, what that tells you is that most likely your bow hold is pretty good, but when you're at the tip, you're relying on your arm muscle to bring the bow back a little bit, not much.
Okay.
So yeah, most students that can do it really well here, but can't do it as well here, you might have a really good bow hold, just that you're applying proper muscles to cross strings.
Yeah. Okay.
So use your index finger a little bit more to kind of clamp the bow down as you're crossing, to kind of have this be more in play as you're crossing strings. That's going to help it to be quieter, and ultimately it's going to help you to play smoother when you're at the tip and transitioning. So
Okay.
I'll just play you guys something. This is what we would sound like if we don't have proper transitioning at the tip. I get that. Now, if we have proper transitioning at the tip, and we do some of the things that we just were mentioning to you guys, like that. So if you're crossing incorrectly, so basically if you're getting that sound, then that's when you're getting that. So that's a really good drill.
Yeah, Michael, I practice all those drills. The pink drill, the wall drill, all of it.
Good. Are you noticing any progress from doing it consistently, or haven't you done it for that long yet?
Absolutely, absolutely. It doesn't seem like when I play I notice it, but I'm aware of it. So when I play, I'm constantly aware of the technique behind it all. So yeah, it definitely helps. It comes when I don't even know it's there, you know.
Yeah, it really just takes practice and repetition. There really isn't any other way. Some students get frustrated if they can't do it after a couple times. The other bad habit I see quite often is students kind of cheat as far as practicing the drills. For example, if you're working on a drill that I really recommend to students, basically it's called the wall index drill. This is where we put our wrist up against the wall at this point, and basically what we're trying to do is work on using the index finger to transition the bow, really relying here to move the bow back and forth, while our wrist is up against the wall. So I'm going to kind of treat my left hand as my wall so I can't move anything here. So we're doing this. Obviously this is not going to sound great. You're probably not going to want to do it when people are around. But what it's doing is it's making you rely more on the index finger. But what I find quite often is that students, when they do this drill, they have their fingers very stiff. That's basically cheating, because what we're doing is we're using those two fingers to do that drill instead of keeping those curved and relaxed and relying on the index. There's my cat. Seems like every time I do a class, she's always hanging out. This is my cat, Snowflake. The doll-faced Persian kitten. We love her very much. I got it for my wife for Christmas. So anyways, so yeah, these two fingers need to be curved while we're doing this drill. So if you're doing the wall drill and it's like this, most likely you're cheating. This is most likely the way it should sound if you're just starting this drill. Because most likely you guys have a lot of stiffness in your hand that we want to really work on getting more relaxed and natural. But for those of you guys that are more beginners, there probably is some sort of stiffness going on that we got to get rid of. Right, Snowflake? So, so yeah, that's a really good drill. I have those available on my website. If you go to the practice routine challenge, you'll see a navigation bar. There's a challenges tab, practice routine that will get you access to all those drills that I just mentioned, including the rocking bow drill, including the wall index drill, as well as others. Awesome. All right, I think I'm going to take a couple questions from the audience. So I'm going to screen share and go to the events page. I haven't noticed anything coming through the plugin yet, so I don't know if it's not working properly or maybe you guys just don't know how to use that quite yet. That's okay. So I'm going to go to violintutorpro.com. You can see everything related to the class right now. You can actually access right on the home page. I'm going to go to the events page and see if there's any questions. Hopefully there are. Jordan asks, what kind of shoulder rest are you using? Jordan, good question. There's actually someone that identified what it was, but I got it from a student of mine. She sold it to me. It's kind of an expensive shoulder rest, but I really like it. You'll have to email me if you want to get know for sure what it is. I'll put my email in the hangout here. I want me to send you that info. Cool. So I'm just looking for any questions. I don't see any quite yet, so feel free, guys, to ask anything throughout the class. You can do that right on the events page. And also, you can join the class live right through the home page, and you can ask audio questions like Troy did. All right, I'm going to go back now to my video. Troy, any other questions so far? If not, that's fine. I'm going to go to my next tip if not.
No, I think you covered the left-hand wrist technique as far as having your hand high and twisting. And the only problem that I have when I play is when my thumb gets tense up against the board, trying to find the notes and just trying to use my fingers. I'm using my hand more than I'm using my fingers, and so it's just I get tensed up when I try to find the notes, I guess.
Sure. So you're talking more about the left hand, what it's doing, the thumb and the left hand?
Yeah, when I go to find notes, certain notes, I end up squeezing my thumb against the board to hold it. I don't know if I'm saying
Sure.
it right.
Sure. So yeah, if you want to show me your setup, I can give you probably a really good tip on that. But yeah, basically we want it to be where we're holding it very much with the chin and shoulder, and then we're able to have a really flexible hand. The hand height should not be adjusted based on the arm. It should be just those 4 steps: 1, 2, 3, 4, drop. Some students, to get height, they force their height. So, but let's take a look at what you're doing. Okay? Can you turn a bit? Maybe either way. I can just so I can see more. Keep going. Yep. Good. Okay. Turn a little bit more for me. All right. Okay, so what I want you to do is take your hand and just slide it up and down for me as you're holding onto the violin and see what happens. Okay. All right. Go ahead and place a finger down. Okay. Looks pretty good to me. I mean, your height could be a little bit higher, Troy. You should see the knuckles higher. So right now you might be kind of more like this regarding your knuckles. You should be more like this.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So that adjustment I think would make a big difference. And then just paying really close attention to exactly where the thumb is. So right now, since you're playing all in first position, it's important that we always keep the thumb in the same spot because that's going to help us with consistency with shifting back and forth, and also being accurate with the first finger placement, as well as knowing where we're at on the fingerboard. When we start to play flats, it's still important to keep the thumb there. So yeah, very important to have it always in that spot.
Okay, great. That helps, with the thumb keeping it in the same spot. That helps.
Okay, cool. Looks like you had a sticker there, if I saw right?
Yes,
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good. I would just maybe get a little bit more height and, maybe just really try to make sure you're holding it without the left hand helping at all. So doing those 4 steps, I think, would be good.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, someone asked their first question to the plugin. Rebecca Barker asks, as a beginner, shouldn't I start with the section on learning to read music before anything else? Yeah, great question. Everybody's at a different point regarding being able to read music. So I would suggest, definitely checking into that if you're not sure how to read. There's a really good resource on my website in the challenges area, Learn How to Read Music, and it goes through a couple videos and tutorials on how to read. But yeah, you can be doing that while you're also working on technique. But yeah, some people come to the violin already knowing how to read, like they play piano or play guitar or something. So it all depends on where you're at. But good question. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so the next tip I want to cover that's really important on the violin is understanding the fingers on the bow other than the ones we've talked about so far. These two I want to talk about. So what I find quite often is that students, when they play the violin, they really press up against the bow with these two fingers. Okay? You want to really avoid that because that causes tension in the bow and ultimately makes it to where you're going to get kind of that scratchy sound that you always want to avoid. Just to give you kind of the physics behind a good sound, what's important is that at all times the bow remains flexible. So what I mean by that is that if I was to grab your bow randomly, I should be able to grab it with no sort of resistance from you. Okay? If I was to try to grab it and it was difficult for me to get it from you, that tells me that there's some sort of pressure up against the bow that's making it challenging for you to get a really good sound. Okay? That can be done, like I mentioned earlier, by the thumb and the pinky. Those could be pressing up against the bow. Very easily as well, it could be these two fingers. Okay? So what I want to demonstrate to you guys is that you can actually play the violin without using anything other than the index finger and the thumb. Okay? So that means that these three fingers, the pinky, the index, the pinky, ring finger, and middle finger, are just there for balance. They're not there to actually help you play. Okay? Well, they help you play because they help you with balance. But okay, so I'm going to use just these two fingers and show you how I can play pretty much just as well. So no fingers here. Okay, so I didn't use these three fingers at all when I just did that. Now, I'm not trying to show you to not use those fingers, but I wanted to prove to you guys that technically these two fingers are the driving force of the bow moving back and forth, okay? These three fingers are what can easily restrict you and make it sound really scratchy, okay? So if you're grabbing it too tight, if you're pressing with those three fingers in the back, that's going to cause the sound to be more, right? It's also going to restrict you from using as much bow, okay? So the reason that I can use so much bow when I'm playing is because there's not a lot of tension up against the bow when I'm playing. I'm just basically putting my hand on it. I'm pressing with the index. My thumb is relaxed. And just as fast as I can punch you is how fast I can stroke the bow, okay? So I'm sure if you guys want to try this a second, can you guys do this fast? Eventually, this is how fast we should be able to bow, or move the bow back and forth, because there's no restriction up against it. Okay? So I'll show you how I can move the bow extremely fast. Okay? So there's no restriction. So these three fingers can easily cause damage to that concept. That's why you see a lot of beginners play the violin like this. Right? Because they're not free, their bow isn't natural and it's not able to get all the way to the tip easily because of the tension that we're talking about. So it's very important that you guys work on this. What I would suggest is if you're not very even close to the concept of doing that, just work on open strings, no fingers down, and just try to go back and forth. Not as fast as I did, but just where you feel like you're getting all the way to the tip, you're relaxed, you're bending your wrist coming up bow, just like this. Maybe watch yourself in the mirror so you can kind of make sure your bow is straight. Maybe go over the A string. So this would be a bad way to do this. Okay, we're trying to get all the way to the tip. Very important. Now, if you don't bend your wrist, you're going to have trouble getting to the tip, like this. My wrist is stiff. Make sure that you're bending coming up bow. I actually have a drill on my website where I have students balance a coin on their wrist to try to keep it on their wrist at all times. That's basically the stroke of the wrist. It should always be level at all times. So if we keep it stiff, the coin is going to fall off the wrist. Okay, that's a really good drill as well. So yeah, I would just practice using the whole bow from about this point, about a quarter up the bow, all the way to the tip, and just try to do that as much as possible when you're warming up. If you're a little bit more advanced, you could do it with scales. If you're a little more advanced than that, you can do it with slurs. Or you can do it with arpeggios. So yeah, you guys can do different things to really practice getting that bow as flexible as possible. So the main points that we've talked about with the flexibility, the thumb, pinky curved, the two fingers in the back relaxed, not pressing. And then the other one, I know there's one more, I just lost train of thought. So yeah, there was one more. I'm sure it'll come in my head in a second. Okay, very good. Let me see if there's any other questions. So by the way, just to show you guys real quick, if you visit violintutorpro.com, that's our website, you guys will be able to ask questions via the forum, so feel free to do that this week. Go ahead and see if there's any questions. All right. Beginner lesson videos help with reading music too, in addition to reading music challenge, especially videos where you just see the sheet music and actually don't see Michael at all. You get see what eighth notes, half notes, whole notes, and slurs look like. Yes, so Daniel brings up a good point. I do have a lot of webinar classes on my website, which are really helpful. You can find them through one of the tabs at the top, and those actually have you go through actual sheet music, actually write things in the music and give you guys tips on that. So I highly recommend you guys check out the webinar recordings. Thank you, Daniel. Michael asked, what song was I playing? I was playing the Jesus Joy of Man's Desiring. That was the song. What else did I play? I think that was the one you were probably asking about. Let's see what else. I don't see any other questions at the moment. If you guys have any, feel free to post in the events area or join the live class. All right, let me go back. All right. So I have one more tip to cover. So we've talked about the left hand, we've talked about the right hand. Hopefully those things are going to help you guys out this week. The other thing I just want to talk about last for tips about the violin is just the focus on also being a musician. So I kind of wanted to get that into the mix. I find quite often that students tend to be a little bit too mechanical at times when they practice the violin. So, they might work on these drills that we talked about. They might be thinking about their right hand. They might be thinking, man, I sound terrible and I just can't seem to do everything right. Just everything related to all the techniques that we talked about. So I wanted to throw in one last tip, which kind of, is the opposite side of the spectrum, and that it's important that you have time when you're practicing that has you worry-free when it comes to technique. So whatever level you're at, you could be a pure beginner, you could be a virtuoso. You want to have time where you're just playing music and trying to make the best sound possible, obviously, but not thinking so much about the technique of how to get the good sound. So, you could turn the lights off in a room and just play something that you memorize, or you could, you have, Mary Had a Little Lamb memorized. You could just try your very best to play it the best way possible. But yeah, just thinking less about the technical aspects. So that was, I guess, my last tip for you guys. And what I would do is, work on your scales and your etudes at the beginning of, your scales and drills at the beginning of your practice. In the second third, practice more your etudes, work on intonation, work on rhythm, things more on the actual page of the music, but still a little bit about technique. And then the last third, think the most about just musicality, less about technique. Try to create the best sound possible. And if you do those things always when you practice, you're going to get less discouraged. You're going to become a better player, better musician. That's a huge part of playing the violin or any musical instrument, is also having the will or the guts to play in front of somebody else, or play in an orchestra, or play in a group. Those are things that you don't want to get so hampered in your own skin that, and you can't do anything right, that it kind of discourages you and hinders your progress. So, isn't that right, Snowflake? I'll put it close up to the camera so you guys can all see the doll-face Persian kitten here. Right, Snowflake? She follows me everywhere. She was sleeping with me earlier. She came all the way downstairs where we do the lessons here to hang out with me. Right? Snowflake? All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching. So if you guys have any questions throughout the week, feel free to email me at michael@superiorviolins.com. Also visit my website at Superior Violins, which is my instrument store. We have a lot of great deals going on violins, bows, cases, accessories. So definitely check out both sites. You can access Superior Violins from Violin Tour Pro. And hopefully we'll see you guys in the next class. We're doing one on Wednesday at 9, intermediate class. Saturday we're doing one at 8 o'clock in the evening, a Q&A session. And the next Monday again at 8 o'clock, we'll be doing another beginner class. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day.